Hello, everyone. Hi, Fran. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Good. Thanks
Okay.
again for the invitation.
So today I'm talking with Fran from Superfluid, as you can actually see everywhere on his side of the screen, and we've met in ETH Milan. And apart from a great dinner conversation, it was really interesting presentation which Fran had about the clever ways of streaming money across blockchain without paying too many gas fees for transactions. And basically, the whole idea behind Superfluid got me really interested. So I'm going to start with asking, as always, like, how did you get to crypto? And since when you are actually in a blockchain space? And then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Again, thanks a lot for the invitation. I think one thing I like to mention is when I was about 15 years old, I started down the open source route. So I started using Linux. I started looking very deeply into open source. I made my first open source contributions. Not technical. I was doing like translations, but I was kind of part of that early. It was part of my formative years, let's say. Then I I worked on a bunch of different things, and I didn't really do anything technical for a long time. In 2017, I first heard about crypto again from a friend. He was telling me about prediction markets, so that piqued my interest. At some point, I moved to Estonia. Estonia is like this, digital nation. Got excited. The first day I was there, I went to a crypto meetup. Again, I didn't know anything about crypto, but they were presenting some ICOs. I don't know if people remember, but there were these countdowns, these websites with countdowns, right? It was like the countdown to the ICO. So everybody had a countdown on their
Yeah,
website. It was
yeah.
very exciting. And I think I must have asked some good questions to the presenters, because after that meetup, a few people came to me, and basically I got a job working in crypto. So I was working for a company that was preparing to do an ICO. Fast forward maybe 4 or 5 months, they decided not to do the ICO. But in the meantime, I was down the rabbit hole, watching videos every day,
You were captured.
learning. I was captured. Yeah, there was no way back at that point. I'd say I was still in kind of the generic crypto bubble at that point. So, looking a lot at Bitcoin stuff, a lot of the kind of new altcoins, ICOs, that kind of stuff. And then about June 2018, I closed my engagement with that company, and I started looking more deeply into the Ethereum space. So that's more or less when I started working directly with my current co-founder, and basically we were building stuff on Ethereum. And we did that together for a while. I started doing some coding as well, which was good to get a bit of that technical knowledge. And then in 2019, so a year later, we basically decided to build a product, and we launched one of the first derivatives of DAI. So, DAI, the stablecoin. In 2019 summer, there were maybe 45 projects, maybe five. So it was a very small ecosystem at the time, and we launched one of the first derivatives. So that got us quite a lot of attention. We started speaking to a lot more people, and eventually we realized that some of the things we were doing with this token were really interesting. And specifically, we were actually distributing yield on chain in a very efficient way, like a lot of projects do. Right? I mean, if you're earning yield on Compound or Aave, you're not paying gas to receive that interest, right? You're simply receiving it. And we started thinking, wait, so there are ways that you can encode a token to move on the blockchain without gas transactions, right? Without operations that cost gas. And we basically realized you can either do this in a very bespoke way for every specific use case, right? So, for example, Aave, you're distributing yield. This is how you can do that on chain without paying gas. Or you can generalize it. And that's where we started getting excited about some of the ideas that led to Superfluid. So Superfluid is a protocol that allows for tokens to be streamed on chain, like you mentioned. So basically, you only make one transaction, and that transaction defines the way that tokens will move between one account and the other. And after this initial transaction, there are no further gas costs to move the tokens. So you can set up a stream. For example, I can say, hey, Petter, you should come work for me. I'll pay you, 1 cent a second. I open that stream, and basically I will pay you until I stop the stream without any further interaction, right? And the key here is that not only am I not making interactions, but I'm also not paying for gas because I'm not touching the blockchain. Like the money is moving without the need for me to actually touch the blockchain at all. And that's when we realized we could do this. It was really exciting. And then the more we explored the idea and built the protocol, the more we got excited, because this actually enables a bunch of stuff that is it's very novel, right? And I think one of the things that attracts a lot of people to the crypto space is the novelty and the innovation that we can build, because we're building everything from scratch, right? And Superfluid to me was like the innovation squared, right? It's money on the blockchain, and you can stream it, and it has all these other cool properties, right? So it's very, very innovative, and that's kept me going in the space basically, without ever thinking of leaving for the last 6 years.
Yeah, it's impressive. So the me being, a past entrepreneur number of times, the most interesting part in most of the conversations is always like, how do you get to the idea, right? Because a lot of people start with, being annoyed by something and trying to solve it. And that's typically not the case in crypto. Like, so most people basically just bump into an idea because they think that would be interesting. And I have to say that I love the streaming dashboard on Superfluid. After we talked, I tried it myself, opened some streams between different wallets, and it's just so satisfying to see how the numbers go up. I mean, you have to look at the right wallet, not the one which is sending it.
That's the problem.
But yeah, that was very cool. And so I think the natural next question is probably, it's like, so what use cases are you seeing right now, and what use cases do you imagine for the future? Because I can definitely imagine a ton, but you are more qualified to talk about it.
I mean, having worked on this idea for almost 4 years now, I can confidently say that if you go far enough in the future, all recurring payments are going to be streamed. Now, whether that is with Superfluid or with some better technology, or maybe a worse technology, right? Because sometimes that happens too. I can't say confidently, right? Obviously, we're trying to make it with Superfluid, but I think payment streaming is the future of recurring payments. And just to kind of give a context, a recurring payment is when you're making a payment more than once, right? So, for example, when you pay your rent, when you pay your salary, when you pay your mortgage repayment, when you make your credit card repayment, when you use buy now, pay later, and you pay it in 3 tranches, whatever it is. And also more things like more financial use cases like, receiving the yield from a bond, right? Those are all recurring payments. Those are recurring transactions or recurring transfers that require settlement multiple times. And generally, the way that this has been done, throughout the 6,000 years of monetary history, has always been in one way, and now we are trying to introduce a new way, right? So it's obviously very different, but I'm confident in saying that the way we're proposing is a better one. So to give an idea, right now, usually payments are monthly. Right, most things happen on a monthly cadence. Your rent, your salary, sometimes bi-weekly, sometimes even daily or weekly. Right, it depends. And the fact that it depends is one of the problems with that system. Right, like the fact that your salary and your rent aren't on the same day. The fact that in order to manage the cash flow of your business, you have to look at an entire calendar and tell when payments are coming in and when payments are going out. And also the fact that you can't give a straightforward answer to the simple question, how long is a month? Right? Because you have months that are 28 days and months that are 31 days, should tell you that that is not a good system, right? It's a system that we are used to and, that we've built around, but it doesn't make it a good system. While one of the advantages of payment streaming, if you imagine it in a very abstract way, is that all the payments are happening at the same time because they are happening all the time, right? So basically,
Right.
if you're paying your salary, if you're receiving your salary and you're paying your rent in a stream, they're happening at the same time. And this means you never have cash flow gaps, right? So very simple example, you move to a new city, you rent an apartment, you have to pay $1,000 on the 25th. You're also starting a new job, but your first salary arrives on the 31st. Right? You have 6 days difference. You have the money to pay the apartment, right? But you don't because they're happening on different days, right? So this simple example should tell you that, unifying payment terms is very powerful. And in traditional kind of commercial relations, it's usually the bigger party that decides, right?
Yep.
So if you're renting an apartment and they tell you have to pay on the 25th, you have to pay on the 25th. If your employer says we do payroll on the 31st, that's it, right? You have to do it when the employer says. You don't actually get to negotiate payment terms as a consumer. So if we're able to unify the payment terms into one kind of everything encompassing payment term, which is continuous second by second payments, then we no longer have this problem. And this actually drives, an incredible amount of efficiency if you look at it from a systemic level, which is why I say, I can confidently say it's a better system for doing recurring payments. It's better on a global scale. And that's one of the small issues with Superfluid, is that it's systemically better, but not necessarily better for everyone involved.
Right. Yeah. Can definitely see that point right now. As you were talking, I was thinking, it's like on a business side, this is awesome. It's just like, I would love it. And then it's like, well, you have to completely relearn the negotiation game. Right now, you're kind of used to negotiate everything in monthly terms. And then, when you mentioned, but not every month is the same. Exactly. So if you pay me every second, some months I get different salary than the other months because they are different lengths.
Yeah. Well, the other way to think about it is right now, when you work in February, you're making more money than when you work in October. Which makes no sense.
That's why I'm only working in February. Very efficient. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. The same comes for rent, right? As you mentioned, the other example.
Yeah.
So
yeah, rent is a very good example. Salaries are a very good example. Yeah. But then there's all these subscriptions, right? Like, a lot of companies use subscription models. So things like, Spotify, Netflix, your internet, all of these things are recurring payments. They're all subscriptions. And I mean, the current system works, but this is much better.
Right. Even though, so especially on subscriptions, like when you are paying for some SaaS things, I can imagine that the best way, let's say the legitimately most logical way would be to pay for the use, which is not that straightforward as, pay by the second. But it's more like, okay, so now I started streaming. It's a little bit more transactions. But then, I think you can kind of achieve the same thing. And, I think people were talking about this for a long time. It's like there was one of the initial idea of micropayments, I think, actually started around this logic. But yeah. Anyway, so what are some more? Yeah.
Let me go a bit deeper into that, because I love this topic, and I never get to talk about it, so I'm going to use this opportunity. So
sure,
when you're deciding on a payment system, there's two things, right? One is how and when the money moves, and the other part is how many actual operations does it create, because every operation creates a cost. Like if I decide to, like, one of the reasons why we do monthly payments and not daily payments is that, going back to, again, 6,000 years ago, I don't want to take gold to my landlord every day, right?
Sure.
I want that transaction, even though maybe it's very easy, it still has a cost. And even if you assume a completely abstracted, browser extension that does everything on its own, on the other side, you're creating accounting costs. Like whatever you do, if there are a lot of operations, it's more expensive somewhere. So basically, the number of transactions you do, the number of operations are expensive. And there's this concept of basically mental cost, right? Or cognitive cost of a transaction, which is the reason microtransactions don't work. Right. So if you were to tell me, oh, you have to click here to pay 0.001 cents, and then you click here to stop paying, like that's too complicated for my brain, for the amount of money I'm spending to think about it, right? So instead of reducing cost, you're actually increasing it because, my mental cycles aren't free. But with streams, you're paying. You make one transaction, you're paying, right? Like you don't even have to think when you're paying. You're just paying, right? The whole time you're paying until you stop paying. So it actually reduces the thought processes. It reduces the mental burden significantly. Like just to give you an example, you make a transfer on the bank, right? You click through and then you have to wait. You have to wait. The counterparty has to wait, right? You're both waiting. You send each other 2 emails saying, oh, have you paid? Yes, here's the proof. Oh, I haven't received it yet, right? And that, imagine for a business that has 10,000 customers and every time there are payment delays, that is an incredible amount of cost that if you have a payment which is incredibly regular because it happens every second, all that cost disappears. You're either getting paid or you're not. You only deal with cancellations. You no longer have to deal with individual payments. So it's, again, from a kind of efficiency and kind of global point of view, it's very powerful.
It is. No, I like it. I just hope that, there will be one winner doing all the streaming, so I don't have to log into multiple dashboards to see what's going on.
That's true.
Where am I streaming to whom? Which I think, so it's probably a good time to talk about a little bit more exotic use cases, because now we talked about pretty straightforward things like rent, and other stuff. But I am sure you guys are working on some more interesting use cases, because definitely several come to my mind. But again, I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so there's one that I really like, which is the concept of trading over time. A lot of people use the word dollar cost averaging, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be dollars. So it's just kind of, let's say, buying an average price. This is a very good trading strategy to accumulate the position. Say you want to buy Ethereum, but you're not a trader. You shouldn't try to be a trader if you're not a trader, right? That's like going to the casino without knowing the rules, right? You're going to lose money. And I think with trading, it's the same thing. If you're not a trader, you shouldn't trade. So buying an average price is actually a really good strategy long term. And streams actually provide the single best way to do this, because you are literally committing to buy every second, right? That's the best average you're going to get on the blockchain, is to buy every second. So there have been a few products built on Superfluid to address this. There's more that are coming. And it's interesting because it also provides a lot of efficiencies around things like slippage, for example. So if you think, imagine, like, forget timing the market. Imagine you're literally always buying a good price, right? Let's just assume that. Even then, if you decide to buy $100 a week, you have slippage, right? If you go to Uniswap, your purchase is going to move the market and you will lose some value there. Now, the smaller the trade, the less the slippage, right? If you trade $1 million, you move the market more. If you trade $100, you move it less. But if you trade 1 cent every second, you're not moving the market, right? Which makes it the best way to trade over time. And some of the really cool things with Superfluid is that payments happen simultaneously. This is a bit hard to understand, but if you imagine I trade on Uniswap, right? I buy some Ether with $100, and then a second later, you make the opposite trade. So you sell some USDC. You sell some Ether for USDC, right?
Yep.
We are both incurring slippage, right? The price is going to move in one direction, and then it's going to move back, and we both pay some fees and some slippage to the Uniswap LPs.
Yep.
But if our trades were settled simultaneously, right, then we would basically be trading with each other, and there wouldn't be a slippage because the prices would not move. And because how Superfluid streams settle every second at the same time, we can actually do that in an exchange as well. So you can have an exchange where both sides of the market are basically settled simultaneously. So the price moves very, very minimally. It only moves, every second, a tiny amount, depending on the balance between those trades. But that is way less than if the orders were sequential. So basically, it has some very, very interesting properties. So trading over time, I think, is going to be very, very interesting. You can imagine, for example, a DAO paying people with tokens, and then the people swapping those tokens for dollars, and then other people who want to buy into the DAO, that maybe they're streaming dollars to buy the token. You can imagine that across a lot of different things. You could be, maybe you're getting your staking rewards in a stream, and then you stream that into USDC. You can imagine people maybe receiving yield from a bond, right, in USDC, but then they want to swap it for Ether, and they just kind of connect those two streams, and they're buying Ether with their USDC bond yield, right? So you can connect all these pipes, and some of the really interesting things are around the fact that this is set it and forget it, right? So the moment you make that transaction to open that stream, it just happens. Like, you don't have to touch it ever again, and it will just keep going with no cost and no transaction fees on your end. So, it's really kind of efficient, and it's very exciting to see that we can use the blockchain to make these very automated financial experiences.
Yeah. You actually hinted on something which I guess, it's on everybody's mind in crypto space, and probably even on some people's mind outside of the crypto space who hate crypto. But it's like, the idea of being able to do some things almost peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. Is there any super cool use case which is coming up which you would like to, shout out?
I mean, there are some people building games, which I think are fun, because games are a good way for people to experience new things in a light-hearted way, right? Like, if I told you, you're going to get your salary, you have to pay your rent every second, you're like, no, that's scary. But if I told you, you can play this game, you do these things, and then you get money every second, you're like, oh, this is really cool. You learn that experience, and then you're like, wait, what else can I do with this, right? And if you look even historically, the adoption of the web has been through adult content and games, right? Like, even me personally, like, the first time I touched the computer was to play a video game, right? And then you start looking deeper, and you start learning deeper, and then you start applying it to more facets of your life, and you're like, oh wait, but in this game I'm chatting with people in real time while I'm playing the game, I'm collaborating with them. Maybe I could do this at work, right? And that's how we start using things like Slack at work, right? Most of these interfaces are actually built for gamers. And then you start realizing that the collaboration that this enables in a game is actually just collaboration, and you can use it at work, right? So my hope is that through games, we're able to kind of highlight some of the usefulness of the technology, and then kind of, hopefully adapt it into more kind of valuable and meaningful use cases. Not that games aren't meaningful, but you know what I mean.
I know.
So
you mean like more real life?
Yeah, real life.
Real life. What is it? Does anybody have real life now?
I mean, I know I don't. So yeah, I think the games are good. I would say, if anyone's keen to have a look, just follow our channels, and when this stuff goes live, you'll see it. There are currently already some games you can buy. There's a lottery where you can buy the lottery, and then if you win the ticket, you will receive a stream forever, which is kind of fun.
Whoa. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think these things are really fun and useful, and if you want to go and try something, these are good use cases to go and try.
So one of the last questions which I always ask is, so there are obviously some competitors who are doing streaming. What's setting a Superfluid apart from them? You know,
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one I really like to touch upon. So there are other players in the space that use the word streaming, and they allow you to basically, do, let's say, payment streams from one user to another. I would say that the main thing that sets Superfluid aside is the fact that our liquidity is interconnected. So
okay.
let's try and make an example of what that looks like. So I'm going to use one of our competitors as an example. You basically, if I want to pay you $1,000, I need to put $1,000 into their contract and define you as a recipient. And then you will be able to go to that contract and withdraw the liquidity over time, right? So you go one day, you can get $10. You go the next day, you can get $10. So you can go and take the money, and it's streaming, right? You can withdraw it. But if you're paying your rent on the other side, and you want to pay your rent in a stream, now you have to take $1,000, lock them in their contract, and then your landlord can go and take the money out every day, right? Which means as your employer, I need $1,000, and as the renter, you need $1,000, and we both need to lock them, and then we both need to go and withdraw the money and take it out. With Superfluid, I can connect my income as a company to my salaries, and you can connect your salaries to your rent. So the money is flowing through our accounts, and we don't need to do any of those withdrawal operations. We don't need to lock the money, and basically it's a lot more efficient because of those things, right? The money is just flowing, and you can connect any number of streams. So I can receive money from my subscribers. I can stream money to all my employees, and all my employees can stream money to all the things they want without making any liquidity movements, because that is handled in the protocol level through this system of interconnected liquidity.
Right.
So
okay, that's actually a great example. Yeah, because I've noticed when I was opening the streams, basically, I think there was one warning saying, you just need to have enough money in your wallet from which you are streaming for the, next basically second stream. So it can be coming. You don't need the whole 1,000. You can start with 100 or whatever, and
exactly.
And when the money comes, it appears there. Okay, all right, that's pretty neat advantage, I have to say. Nicely done.
I think it's the only way this actually drives efficiency. If you look back enough on Twitter, I actually was bashing those other products before starting Superfluid. So not as a competitor. Not as a competitor. I was doing it as a user. I was like, guys, I don't think this makes sense, because if I have $1,000 and I want to give you $1,000, then I'll just give you $1,000. Like, streaming them doesn't add efficiency, right? But it does add efficiency if I can stream money to you as I receive it, because then I'm actually moving the money faster. So yeah, I think it's a very meaningful difference, but the market will tell us.
Right. Cool. Any, last words? I would definitely recommend everybody go and check Superfluid and open the stream, because, you've never seen money rolling to your account that fast. I can bet you that. It's actually very cool. So any last words, how can people go be helpful?
So I would say if you're a user, join our Discord. We're always posting stuff that our ecosystem applications are building, and there's a lot of stuff that you can go and try right now. If you're a builder, if you're a developer, then I want to make it very clear that everything we do is open source. So you can go, you can check the code, you can figure out how it works, you can use it in your own products. It's open for builders. So we're supporting our developers all the time to build really cool stuff. We have a monthly hackathon. So if you want to build something, you can build it, you can present it and win a prize every month. And, generally speaking, we want to see what you will do with this. Like, we're very excited to help developers build cool experiences using streams to help enable, you know, all these kind of things that we've been discussing.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for making the time, Fran.
Yeah, thank you for inviting.